And welcome back, fellow football fanatics. This is College Football with Sam. And today, a little bit of a surprise for all of you, but I am proud and excited to welcome former Michigan tight end, NFL tight end, and current Big Ten Network analyst Jake Butt onto the show. And apparently, he watches my channel, which is pretty funny and also a massive honor. So we're going to be talking about several games today for half hour, 40 minutes, however long I can have him, because his insight's very valuable. How are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. I mean, I've had a chance to catch my breath a little bit. What a crazy weekend of games. What a crazy season of games. I always go back to when NIL first is being discussed, and then when it's implemented, the loud voices saying this is the death of college football as we know it. And those that were wise to it, I mean, I lived it and I saw the way that certain schools would monopolize talent. There was NIL going on before NIL, and they monopolized talent. So like the curve would be 2 or 3 teams and then a drop off. And now the talent disparity, it's just more evenly distributed across college football, where it's a real true slope. It's like Y equals MX plus B. There's no exponents in there, you know. But I will say, Sam, thanks for having me on. I do watch the show. Shocked. I mean, I would have thought more color analysts and broadcasters listen to the podcast, but when I talk to different people, because I watch a ton of shows, Locked On Huskers last week to get ready for the game, it's not common practice. But for me, I'm like, when I'm cooking breakfast or driving in the car, I want to just immerse myself as if I was a fan of the programs and just listen to all the content I can. So for the viewers, I got a shout out from Sam last week. He said, I hope Jake's on the call. I was like, wait a second. This is pretty cool. So good to join you here.
Yeah. Again, honored to have you on. And speaking of the whole talent thing, I did see a tweet from Bud Elliott of the Cover 3 podcast. It's one of the podcasts that I listen to pretty consistently, even though I'm always doing this and other things. And he was talking about how the difference between a top 10 team and a top 20 team is a field goal or less in power ratings. And back in 2019, when you had Ohio State, Clemson, and LSU go all 13-0, the difference between one of those teams and a team outside the top 10 was 3 touchdowns.
Right.
So it's just
right.
A total
That's
change
a great
pace.
way to put it there. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's crazy. It's good for us. It's healthy. The sport is healthy for sure.
It's healthy and it's chaotic, and I think that's a great place to start off with today's breaking news that I had to cough and sneeze and blow my nose through between Northwestern and Penn State, and then obviously the ramifications of that being Franklin getting axed and paid $50 million to basically go away. Any initial thoughts on that, where Penn State may go, and what do you think of the Franklin tenure, and why did Penn State fail this year?
Is that confirmed? Does he get the full buyout, or was there something negotiated? Was that confirmed?
I don't exactly know off the top of my head, but I saw enough reputable people mentioning the $50 million buyout to where
Okay.
I'd lean towards it being official.
Okay. Yeah, that was my big point of curiosity, because it was the 50. I think it's even over 50. I thought it was like mid 50s. So it's you got to buy out Jim Knowles, highest paid defensive coordinator in college football. They also had to buy Knowles out from Ohio State to get him in the first place. You're paying Kotelnicki a ton. The roster was expensive this year. They're undergoing stadium renovations that I think is close to a 10-figure price tag. They are spending money right now. So I was curious of how they were going to navigate this, but certainly it had to be done. I mean, I think James' body language was communicating that he was ready for it to be done himself, and that's why I'm wondering if he negotiated something under the table just to put an end to everybody's misery. First off, I think the most important thing is I feel for the players. Drew Aller I've been in locker rooms. I was part of the Michigan teams. You're a Michigan alum. I mean, we as players work 100%. We give it our all. Like Penn State, these guys trained all off season and they were ready to go on a run. We did the camp tour. We talked to them. They're phenomenal human beings, and they were ready to go take what they did last year and take it to the next level. And we thought maybe that the out of conference games to start the season, maybe they're holding something back. Maybe they're reserving it for Oregon. And now what we found out is they're just not that good. And why the move had to be made, in my opinion, is, as a head coach, and we'll talk about Signetti and Lanning, as a head coach, one of the main points you have to do is take the potential of what your team can be as a team, take the potential of what your offense, defense, special teams could be as a unit, and take the potential of each individual player and try to maximize that potential. And what was concerning to me is, how is it the case that Drew Aller regressed year over year? How is it the case that Singleton has seemingly regressed throughout his time? Why is Katron Allen not getting 80% of the carries? Like, that's just pure, easy identification. Go to the hot hand. Why did the O-line regress? Why did seemingly the receivers who you went out and spent money on, why are they worse? Or not, at least not improved. That's the part that was concerning, and there's no excuses to be made for it. Penn State, they're looking at this saying the results have to match the financial commitment. So part of James was saying is, hey, we need to, guys, if you're going to give me expectations to beat Ohio State and Oregon, I need the financial commitment. Well, the school gives them the financial commitment. Part of it is another thing is, hey, why do we always have to play Ohio State and Michigan at noon? We want the night game whiteout. Well, you get the night game whiteout against Oregon, and you fall short. The staff commitment down the line, there was everything that James asked for, he was given, and yet they fell short. That's why I think James looks so broken right now. Is I know he genuinely believed in his heart that he was going to get it done, and he got everything he asked for and fell short. And that's a humbling thing to have to swallow.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. I remember in that post-game press conference he did after the Oregon game, he made a comment about how, well, there's this narrative out there relating, of course, to the big game James thing with the losing record in the top 10, top 5 matchups. And then he kind of cut himself off and said, it's not a narrative, it's facts. And when you say that and sort of self-deprecate yourself there, it feels like you have this fork in the road where you either use that to change something, as I think Ohio State did after that Michigan loss, or you implode, you fold. And I guess Penn State, for a variety of reasons, folded up against UCLA. It looks like they quit. Northwestern, I was catching a little bit of that game with my side eye. That was one of the more uninspiring efforts I've seen from a team with that much NFL talent. I mean, to have A.J. Harris regress, Aller sadly, tragically gets hurt, but he regressed from last year to this year. For Kotelnicki and Knowles to have the track records they do, and they look lost.
Yeah.
You have to think that falls back on the head coach.
It's top down. No, it's absolutely top down. And that's the part that is so disappointing is, you ever seen the movie 300?
No.
You have never seen that movie?
I've seen clips of it, I think.
Oh, I know you're fighting a sickness right now. So when you're resting and relaxing, slap on the movie 300. It is an all-time movie. How did this army of 300 compete against armies of hundreds of thousands? Well, it's because there was complete and utter alignment and clarity and purpose and execution. None of that could be said about anything Penn State has done throughout the entirety of the beginning of the season here. It was completely disaligned, misaligned. There was no belief in the game plan. The players' body language was piss poor, frankly. The players' body language was communicating to me that they didn't believe in their game plan and they didn't believe in their ability to execute. And then you factor in the weight of the expectations, and you have one of the more unbelievable and sad and depressing stories that I can remember. And credit to UCLA, credit to them being ready to seize that opportunity. Credit to Northwestern and David Braun. for him ready to be seized to seize that opportunity. When you have a chance to win those games, gotta go win those games. There's been a lot of teams, good teams, that have given lesser teams chances and yet found a way to win in the end. And UCLA and Northwestern found a way for them to close it out and win in the end. So for Penn State, where do you go from here? Matt Rule, I've heard. Signetti, I've heard. I mean, now it's going to be the news cycle of different names that get thrown around. And clearly Penn State, with their athletic director and just leadership top down, they are financially ready to commit and compete at the highest level. So they're gonna take a big swing at this because I think they enjoyed the way last season went. They liked winning, and they want to get back to that.
Yeah, I think that we're both in agreement that today's message from Penn State is that we're a big boy program now. We believe in our floor, and we also believe in our ceiling. I would not be shocked if they go out and make a statement that was akin to what USC did with Riley or LSU tried to do with Brian Kelly.
Yep.
Up next, want to look at the game you were in attendance for and calling. Nebraska beating Maryland. Another, my takeaway just from a instant reaction standpoint was Nebraska wins another close game.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this game? Break it down for us.
I mean, that was one of I think that was my 7th game. I'm in my 4th year calling games for the Big Ten Network. That was the best game I've ever been in the booth for. I mean, wow. What a treat. What a treat. It was back and forth, massive momentum swings, lead changes, 2 great quarterbacks, Dylan Raiola and Malik Washington, just absolutely dueling, throwing dimes. Guys were just making plays left and right. There was emotional swings. Maryland, so many dumb penalties, self-inflicted penalties. Just couldn't get out of their own way. For Nebraska, it's Raiola throwing 3 interceptions. And it's like, what is going on? And yet, for the 2nd straight week, Maryland finds a way to get it done down the stretch. That game against Michigan State last week, they lose that game. If it was last year all the way up to the beginning of the Scott Frost, that is the exact game they lose.
Yes.
And yet they have resolve now. Special teams has become a major net plus for Nebraska. Shout out to Coach Eckler, their special teams coach. It was a major net negative during the dark years, and it's no longer now just like a neutral. It is a net positive. It is a plus and a weapon for the Huskers. Big time kick return by, what is his name? He just got put on scholarship yesterday. Kenneth Williams. I wanted to give him a shout out. Was a walk-on. Kenneth Williams had a long of 85 after Maryland had a ton of momentum. Returns at 85 yards, and then in the locker room gets put on scholarship after the game.
That's incredible.
Just beautiful. It's a great video. Shout out to Matt Rule and the Huskers for getting it done. Let me get to the actual main point here, okay? In the NFL, NFL is different than college. Usually in college, if you throw 3 picks, it's game over. In the NFL, though, every game is so close. You see quarterbacks have bad games. They'll throw 2 and 3 interceptions, and yet you still have a chance to win. And the best quarterbacks find ways to win on their worst day. Dylan Raiola found a way to win on one of his worst days. The ball is in his hand. It is the final drive, just under 4 minutes left, I believe, and he goes 4 for 5 with major big-time throws on that drive. I mean, just big-time plays in the biggest moment, and they take the lead, and then the defense closes it out with a big-time stop. It's a completely different Cornhusker football team. The mentality of the team is completely different. I think the fan base now has to catch up. I think the Nebraska media now has to catch up. Matt Rule is no longer they're not talking about being cursed anymore. They're not talking about Raiola told us that this team, they enjoy the 4th quarter these days. It's a completely different football team. And then you spin it forward and you say, look at that schedule. They got Minnesota on the road here. Who do they have? They have someone else at home coming
Northwestern.
up. Northwestern. And then I believe who is it? Do they host
USC.
USC at home November
Yep.
1st? You're talking about a chance to be 8-1 on November 2nd, going on the road to UCLA. No more ranked teams on your schedule, and then we're talking about the Huskers in the playoffs. I mean, that's seriously where we're at with this team. They have some things to clean up. Malik Washington was able to expose them a little bit defensively. I think he is a phenomenal. I mean, he is. I know he's a phenomenal young freshman quarterback. He's unbelievable. But this Husker team, Emmett Johnson as a running back, that was
Stud.
one of the best running back performances I've seen in person when I was in the booth. Not that I've ever seen, but in terms of a game I've called, Emmett Johnson, unbelievable. 176 yards on the day. I don't know who they have behind him, and I hope he can stay healthy. Like in terms of a playoff team, you need depth, but this is a different Husker football team for sure.
Everything you said, special teams, I've seen that in watching their games. It's a net plus. It kept them in that Michigan State game long enough for them to collect themselves. If not for that blocked punt, Michigan State may have been up 2 scores, may have been able to close it out, and being able to recover a muffed kickoff and block that punt for a touchdown, that's a big swing in a game that otherwise would have been a 1-score win or loss. It did shock me that Maryland was able to run that effectively, given I think they were outside the top 130 in yards per carry entering that. So what you said about that defense is definitely true, but being able to win when you throw 3 interceptions on the road is a sign of mental toughness and good coaching. And with how Penn State's looked, we know Iowa has limitations. USC, I think, has limitations with depth. You can see a 10-2, even a 11-1 Husker team if everything goes right, and that's crazy.
There's not a ton of separation in the middle of the conference. Like in that, and you think about Iowa has been the team, especially before the expansion out west. You know, in the middle of the conference, Iowa was consistently been the team that's been able to elevate, and it's not because of a talent advantage. You know, like Nebraska's talented. I love what they did upgrading at the wide receiver position with Key and Hunter. They upgraded far more than Penn State did and helped out their young quarterback. But the reason Iowa was able to elevate and separate from the pack consistently is they don't beat themselves. And they have great special teams. Like when the margin is razor thin, you win in the margins. You do that by avoiding beating yourselves and stealing points in situations. Special teams. That's what the Huskers are doing right now. Now, they did try to beat themselves with the turnovers, but they found a way to win. So us is a dangerous team. And I feel for Mike Locksley, though, too, Sam, because 2 straight weeks. I was on their call the week prior, and it was a big recruiting weekend. It was a sold-out crowd for them. Their group of freshmen is maybe as good as you'll see in college football with Malik Washington, Sidney Stewart, and Zahir Mathis. Their pass rushers, Delhomme, their safety. But they need to win to be able to keep this. And just another devastating loss for the Terps.
Curious to see where they go moving forward because per dominance metrics and all these things, they've looked really impressive. But just 2 close losses in a row, it'll be interesting to see if they can mentally carry that load. Speaking of a team who's been able to, I think, carry themselves through just about anything this year, it's been Ohio State. Ohio State was a team that I wasn't exactly the highest on preseason, but in watching Game 1, Game 2, all the way up until Game 6, they've stood out as being very fundamentally sound, consistent, mostly minimizing their weaknesses, and they beat Illinois 34-16 with a very vanilla game plan, and it was just so impressive. So, any thoughts on the Buckeyes and the Illini and where you see Ohio State in the national pecking order? They are ranked first in both the polls, and I don't disagree with that at all at this point.
No, and in a college football landscape where there isn't a ton of separation and there is a ton of parity and anyone can win on any given Saturday, Ohio State's separated from the pack, in my opinion. They're different. They are different. It's the best defense in college football. the big question is, they replace all these guys to the NFL. I mean, you win a national title and you send guys off to that next level, and it's like, well, how are they gonna replace Cody Simon as the veteran linebacker? Well, by getting Arvell Reese, who's like night and day better than Cody Simon, and
Yeah.
maybe a top 10 pick. How do you replace Denzel Burke? Oh, well, we're just going to bring in Jermaine Matthews and some of our other DBs that are objectively, better than Denzel Burke. Kenyatta Jackson across the defensive line, Caden Curry, Caden McDonald. I mean, these guys, this is Ohio State. It's like the next man up, and they're so talented. Offensively, the thing is what I like about Ryan Day is the way he's coaching this football team is what's really concerning for the rest of college football, because it's effortless on offense. They're not trying. They haven't had to do anything to stress test. They're just running the ball. They play ball control. They have a very slow pace of play and tempo, not concerned with winning the stat battle. They just say, hey, if we control the clock, the opponent is going to feel helpless trying to score against our defense.
Yeah.
And now they got that emergence of Bo Jackson at running back as a true freshman. He's their best guy. But, saying completion percentage, accuracy, ball placement, he's been outstanding, and they got weapons aplenty there. So Ohio State, you just go top down. I could talk about them for 45 minutes. It's the best team in college football, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes. I love Indiana, and we'll talk about them up here, but until they show that they can completely kind of give the middle finger to the BCR, I just can't put them ahead of this team. I mean, this team, they check the BCR box, they check the coaching box, they check the depth box, they check all the boxes. And I'm curious to see how the offense continues to progress, and if it looks different in the playoffs or in the Big Ten title game or against maybe teams that have better offenses to maybe get some points on that defense. But then again, will anyone get points on that defense? I mean,
Washington's built, of all teams, like Washington would have been the team built to score because of Damon Williams' legs, and Jonah Coleman is a beast down in the red zone, and they got playmakers, and Jed Fish is a great play caller, and there was just nothing. There's literally nothing down there in the red zone.
Yeah, it's crazy. The only time this team will even be tested is against a truly complete team, some of the teams at the top, and most teams at the top can't even say that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alabama, they've been tested a few times this season. They even lost to Florida State. Texas lost to Florida. Georgia was in a dogfight with Auburn in a very losable game last night that I think some officiating may have screwed over Auburn, but that's beside the point.
So crazy.
That was so bad in so many ways. But Ryan Day has been, and I'm a Michigan guy, but I really don't care. I've always liked him as a person. I've always liked him as a head coach. I've kind of said on my channel for I think a year or so now that I think he's taken Urban Meyer's program and leveled it up and made it better. And I think that, given that Matt Patricia and Bryant Haynes probably command the two best defenses right now, and I think if not for Patricia being hired and if not for Indiana having money, that maybe Haynes was the blue blood, maybe Haynes was the DC that Cignetti was referencing, or I'm tripping all over myself. Maybe Ohio State was the blue blood program Cignetti was referencing in regards to trying to take away his DC. The fact Ryan Day has that kind of hot board going for coordinators and has built the staff he has in the roster is very impressive.
That's the number one thing for your head coach, though, is it's the ability to identify what type of coordinator fits your personnel, and then to be able to sell your program to said coordinator, and to have the relationships where those coordinators want to come be a part of your program. And I think that's the challenge with Sharon Moore at Michigan right now is, he's a young coach that hasn't had the chance to build a ton of relationships. And obviously last year with the coordinator decisions, particularly in coaching decisions on the offensive side of the ball, set him back. Progress this year, but still a long way to go. Ohio State, they rinse and repeat every single year. There was an article that says Ohio State is a recession-proof program. hard to argue against that. It truly is.
Yeah. I wonder if they watch this channel, because I think I've made a video or even two with that title talking about that, they don't, they just don't lose many games. Like their floor under Day has been 10-2, and maybe that'll be lowered by a game in the new era, maybe, but
Maybe.
that again, maybe. For everyone else, it's a known. Your floor is 9. Your floor now at best is 9-3. You can't say that about Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get on to Sharon Moore in Michigan, do you have any thoughts on Indiana and Oregon?
Oh, yes, I do.
Spill the tea.
Wow. I'll start with Cignetti. This is truly unbelievable. It's like beyond words. There's no words to properly describe what he's doing and grasp what he's doing, because it's uncharted territory, and it's absolutely remarkable. And it's even harder to do in this era, in the NIL era, much harder to do, in my opinion, than in the past. Now, of course, he's got the financial commitment from Indiana, but he had to earn that from the higher ups, and he did exactly that. To go on the road, the level of this, they're now the benchmark for the conference. Like, now I judge Michigan. The Michigan loss to USC looks worse because of the way Indiana looked on the road. And I'm not even talking about like winning a given rep. I'm talking about the way the team took the field, how prepared they looked. I'm talking about Cignetti in his post-game presser, just the perfect awareness to say, hey, my number one job as a head coach was to ensure my team was in the right mindset. I needed them to believe in themselves. And I knew we needed to have the perfect game plan. And I felt good about our game plan. And I felt good about our players' preparedness. And I felt good about their ability to go out there and execute it. And they did exactly that. They won at the line of scrimmage. That's always the big difference between the big dogs at the conference and the rest, is like the line of scrimmage. They beat up on Oregon, and I did not think that would be the case. I thought Oregon's offensive line was one of the best in college football. And Indiana has some ball players, but had been leaky at times. I really like Oregon's defensive line, and yet, Indiana controlled the line of scrimmage. This is QB1 and QB2 in the conference. Mendoza took it to him, made more plays, played better. And Indiana, they had the better game plan. They were more ready to play and had the better game plan in all three phases. I mean, can't give enough credit to Cignetti. I mean, there was another article too about the 4 stars and 5 stars on these rosters. Like Indiana, I don't think they have a single 5-star on their roster. I believe they have 7 former 4 stars, and Oregon has like 4 times the amount of 4 stars. So that's another thing, is as a head coach, you have to be able to scout better than 247 Sports and Rivals and On3. You have to trust your talent evaluation better. You have to trust your ability to maximize the potential of your players. Just like we're talking about James Franklin, his players are getting worse. Cignetti elevates the play of his players. I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed with that football team. I mean, he is the standard. I feel bad. He's screwed over everyone else in college football.
Yes.
Everyone else is saying, why can't we do it? We're paying you the money, coaches. Why doesn't it look like that? But this guy's a unicorn.
Yesterday was a historic day for two fronts. This game, and the fact that Indiana had never won a road AP top 5, or they'd never won a game against an AP top 5 ranked team before yesterday.
Yeah.
And they earned that historical achievement. And by doing so, they ramp up the pressure on every other rebuild because of what they've been able to do last year and the fact they look even better this year. And then you parlay that with Franklin being fired today due to the Northwestern game, and every coach in America, the minute they lose, the lighter turns on, the propane tank turns on, and I guess it's true that it's easier now more than ever to be on that hot seat. And that's a credit to Cignetti and the fact that, I said this to you pre-show, but it reminded me a lot of not just Texas Tech going into Utah and controlling the lines of scrimmage and looking like the clearly better team and winning. It kind of was like Oregon going into Penn State a few weeks ago, and it was close early, but you could tell as the game progressed who was the better team, except Indiana didn't let Oregon come back in the fourth quarter, even with the pick six.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another thing too. I don't know when the interview, I don't know if it was pregame, postgame, or an earlier interview where Cignetti was talking to CBS. And I think Neuheisel asked him, like, because he was an assistant coach at Alabama, and he's like, why did you go take that D2 job? Like, why did you leave? It was a reduction, and he was making like $300K plus as a position coach and jumped down to $100K. It was a program that had historically been winning, but were down in the dumps and not winning. And he bet on himself. And then they get talking, and he's like, yeah, we were a program that he took it over when they were like down in the dumps and not winning. And in their first ever season, they go 12-2. And then Cignetti says, and we could have been undefeated if I spent more time on special teams. And it was it's a little subtle comment, but I'm like, what he just told you is everything about him as a head coach. We could have been undefeated. Okay, already in his mind, he's like, I believe I can win and should win every single game. That's how much he believes in himself. But also he's saying, if I spent more time on special teams. So as a head coach, he has full awareness of everything in the program. He identified that special teams was an issue. That's first step. A lot of coaches may not even be able to do that. He identified that special teams was an issue. He spent time with special teams to improve it. So not only did he identify it, but he had the capability to improve upon the special teams. And he said, but if I spent more time with the special teams. So then he identified like, hey, maybe I didn't do it enough. And he corrected it. And that's how he continues to rise and elevate. But to me, I'm like, man, like how many head coaches are just like an offensive guy or a defensive guy or neither? And he's like, he is a true CEO and master of all three phases and has the capability to go actually improve upon the weak points of his team. Once it improves, check. What's the next weakest area of my team? I'm going to go improve upon it. Like that. That to me is just, that's what a head coach is. And it's just so impressive where he's at.
He truly learned from Saban. And I don't think a lot of people understand that game was between two ex-Saban assistants, Dan Lanning, Curt Cignetti, and I imagine Lanning is going to go back to the drawing board. Before we move on to USC Michigan, what are your thoughts on these two teams in terms of the national landscape?
Like USC and Michigan, or Oregon and Indiana?
Oregon, Indiana.
Oh, I mean, they're still two of the best teams in college. My thoughts don't really change in any meaningful or measurable way. I'm obviously more impressed with Indiana than I was. And, winning on the road, you get even more bonus points. Like, I mean, this is suddenly one of the three best teams in college football. I still don't think they have the raw talent of Ohio State.
No.
In the Big Ten, but that's a football team. And then meanwhile for Oregon, I'm not concerned. You lost to a really good football team. This does not change my opinion. Dante Moore, I think that's a complete anomaly of what I would expect him to do in big games. I think, coaching again, though, I think De'Aaron Hill had like one touch in the first half, I want to say. Kenyon Sadiq as a tight end, I think he had like one catch. He had two catches for 21 yards. Rushing, De'Aaron Hill, 3 rushes for -3 yards. That's just coaching to me. It's you can't do that. You have to put the ball in the hands of your best players. Indiana did that. So they'll adjust. They'll adjust just like Ohio State did last year. I believe Oregon will adjust.
Those are very close to my thoughts. I'd peg it 1 Ohio State, 2 IU, 3 Oregon right now in the conference. And then there's this huge drop off.
Yes.
And Oregon, they tried, I think, in that third quarter to get Dante Moore, or not Dante Moore, but DeCorian Moore and Kenyon Sadiq the ball. Like their first drive, I think, catch by Sadiq and then an end around to DeCorian Moore. And Indiana just being able to take those guys out of the game, only allowing 67 yards, I think, or 65 yards on 27 plays, second half. Just what a job. What a phenomenal job.
Coaching job.
Yeah. in
It's just great.
strong juxtaposition to Michigan and what
Yeah.
they tried against USC. So I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. You and I are, well, you're a Michigan alum. I'm soon to be a Michigan alum. And more importantly, you played under Harbaugh. You played at Michigan. And yeah,
Yes.
just deliver. That's all
Yeah.
I'm asking here.
I mean, it was that was just such a disappointing performance. I mean, that's just like the number one word that just flashing in my head. It's just like completely disappointing. If you told me going into that game that Maava was going to have the game that he ended up having, 265 yards. If you told me that Lemon was going to ball out and Lane was going to contribute and Lake McCree, I wouldn't have been shocked in the passing game. Michigan's got a young secondary, But what cannot happen is you give up 226 yards on the ground to a third string redshirt freshman running back who is leading the way because USC's top two guys get injured. That is what I cannot swallow and frankly cannot accept. And my big, as I look at this and project it forward, it's like, if you're a Michigan fan, how long of a leash do you have here? Because we just talked about Ohio State as being a recession-proof program. The financial commitment is you can't commit more. Bryce Underwood is you can't commit more financially. So I can handle losing, but to get dominated and then to go online and look at the articles being written, and it's like USC had their way with Michigan. USC physically dominated Michigan. I thought this was going to be a game, a clashing of identities, where Michigan is this big, physical, tough team, and USC is this finesse team that has had success running the ball and has had a disruptive defensive line, but I wouldn't call them a physical team. I thought it was going to be a clashing of identities. Little did I know that USC was going to win the physical battle, and USC was going to dominate the line of scrimmage. And USC's game plan was the game plan by the coaches and staff of the Trojans was significantly better than Michigan. They came ready to play, and they had answers, and Michigan didn't, and they didn't make any adjustments. And then you just peel back the layers here. Michigan, I just don't think there's certainty from the coaching staff. I think there's a lot of guessing and hoping and trying without knowing and believing. Michigan leaves on Thursday night because it's like, hey, we're going coast to coast. We got to leave a day early. That's the new trend that teams are taking. Well, Michigan has to wait till classes are done, so they don't leave, and they don't arrive in L.A. until Michigan posts there on social media, touchdown in L.A., and the timestamp is 10:30 L.A. time. So they're not going to get to their hotel till 11:30, and the players aren't going to put their heads on the pillow until 12:30 L.A. time, which means 3:30 Eastern a.m. So you go a day early and you wasted it. You just ruined your sleep schedule, and the guys are going to be exhausted. So even that, it's like you're guessing. You're like, hey, we're going to go a day early because we're smart, and we're going to go a day early. And that's what we should do. But the execution works against you. It's little stuff like that. Bryce has talent, clearly. This offseason is going to be huge to surround him with talent, so we can. I mean, there's a small window for Michigan. You have to capitalize on this. Offensive line not good enough. Great to see Andrew Marsh emerge. He's a good piece going forward. When Justice Haynes gets injured, it almost seems like a guy was masking issues of what is probably an average, sometimes above average, sometimes below average offensive line, but overall average. Punter, what Michigan special teams, when you're winning special teams, we're talking about special teams with Nebraska and all these other teams, special teams, can't punt the ball. This is Michigan. What are we doing? Yeah, it's in the details, though, like the details. The fundamentals aren't there.
Yes, they're not.
The coaching decisions aren't there. The game plan isn't there. Just all that stuff that Harbaugh worked to show when Michigan won 3 straight Big Ten championships and 3 straight playoff bursts. That was a well-coached football team with great discipline. I do not see that at all from Michigan. And what's concerning is I don't see an improvement year over year either from Michigan in those areas.
No, I would actually argue this team's probably worse fundamentally sound than last year's, because last year you still had some of that connection to the prior regime, and you do this year, but not to the same degree. I mean, for USC to do what they did, and I thought exactly what you did. I picked USC to win mostly because of the travel, but I thought that Michigan, maybe slightly better team, clashing of styles, but due to the travel and USC needing this one, they would pull it out. Man, I was correct on who would win. I was incorrect in this idea that Michigan would even keep it close. I mean, it got ugly real fast, and if not for USC, I think, trying to be a little bit too cute, it could have been even worse. It was so jarring to me watching Michigan defensively. How many times is USC going to throw a screen at you, and yet you send 6 or 7 guys forward to the quarterback and over pursue?
Let me add to that here, okay? Because I like scouting. I'm not doing deep level scouting, but on my podcast last week, I go in there and you can just go to PFF and see like Jaden Mayava. First off, Wink Martindale, #1 pressure rate among all defensive coordinators in the Power 4. Michigan sends blitz at the highest rate of any defense in the Power 4. Well, Jaden Mayava is one of the best quarterbacks when facing pressure in the Power 4. He's got like a 90-plus PFF grade when facing the blitz. His completion percentage is top 5 in college football. So going into and he has only taken 1 sack against the blitz all year. So the blitzes haven't worked. They haven't got home. So I understand going into this game plan saying, well, but you haven't done it against Michigan yet. I actually agree going into the game that should be your mindset. But to your point, when you're getting abused on the exterior in the screen game, you have to adjust. Mayava had 32 dropbacks. On 26 of those dropbacks, the ball was out in under 2.5 seconds. He was not holding on to the ball. You know what his stat line was? He was 24 of 26 on those completions, dicing Michigan up. The blitz did not get home. And that's where it's like, you have to be able to adjust. And in 2 years now, I cannot, maybe you can. I can't think of one game where there's been a frustrating first half and then you've said Michigan made the necessary adjustments in the second half. I can't think of one off the top of my head. And this was a week where it was needed.
The only one I can think of, and this I think is even more damning than what you're saying, is the Nebraska game where the head coach was suspended.
Oh, yeah. Shoot, you're right.
Like, that's...
You're right.
And even
right.
then, they go up by 10 points, and Martindale, I'm not a coach, so I don't want to be overly critical, but the minute Michigan gets up by 10, they kind of go into prevent, and Nebraska starts dicing them up again. And it's just... It feels like this team, with a much better staff, could be that much better and that further forward. And
that's what I'm saying here. That is where Cignetti is taking whatever the potential is of his team. The players are playing at this level. I don't think Michigan has a great offensive line, but they're not as bad as what they've looked like.
No,
you know what I mean? Michigan's defensive line definitely is not as bad as what they looked like. That's the part that's concerning.
Yes. Yeah, they have the appropriate size. They have the appropriate talent, the measurables. They, in theory, have it all. With I would say, the exception of wide receiver. That's a different conversation.
I don't think their offensive line is great.
Yeah.
I think they're average at best.
Yeah, and that's an indictment on the coaching staff.
Yeah, fair.
Absolutely. Yeah. For Michigan moving forward, what do you think the ceiling is of this team? What do you think needs to be done in reaction to this?
I don't think they're a playoff team right now. I don't think they're a playoff team. That was a game that was like a playoff play-in game, effectively. If you show maturity, if you show the ability to play at a high level, and execute on the road, if they won that game, even if they won an ugly one, you could say, man, well, maybe this is a team that can get into the playoffs in a season of college football where there's murky waters and it's uncertain. What's the ceiling for the team? Or they're 4-2 right now, 2-1 in the Big Ten. If I go to let's see what their schedule's looking like here. So you got home against Washington. Let's just start there, actually. Let's just say this and say their entire rest of the season rides on next week.
Yes.
That's what I'll say. That's as far as I'll go. Because as dangerous as USC is offensively, Damon Williams, did you see his stat line last week?
Had over 500 total yards, right?
Yes. 5 touchdowns. I'm just gonna pull it up real quick just because the viewers, you guys have to hear this. So against Rutgers, 21-27, 402 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But he had 13 carries for 136 yards and another 2 touchdowns. So you better come to play. You better be disciplined, or he's gonna dice you up. He will dice you up. He will dice anybody up. You better come to play. You better come to play. So that's how I'll answer the question. I don't know, but I'll find out next week.
All right. I think that is a perfect answer. Right after that USC game, I thought to myself, wow, if they can't play better on defense, Washington's going to be a chore, even at the 9 a.m. Pacific time kickoff. And for context, viewers, Rutgers defense, yes, is 126th in efficiency metrics. Like that is a late Rich Rod at Michigan caliber defense. It's bad.
They stink.
But Michigan's defense is also nowhere near at this point what Indiana's or Ohio State's is, where I could count on those teams with their D-line and their coordinators versus Washington's O-line completely locking that offense down. You can't count on that if you're Michigan. And it's sad looking at the state of things. I want to have hope with Underwood and with some of the talent coming in, but Michigan, like you said, they have the talent on O-line. They have the talent on D-line to be better than this, and that's where their bread and butter has been. And it feels like their identity is somewhat lost, and that's, I guess, my final thoughts there.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you again, Jake, for coming on. Really appreciate the feature. Appreciate you watching the show, and can't wait to have you on again.
Yeah, likewise. Hopefully, Michigan, hopefully you bounce back a little bit and play better. I got a ton of respect for Jed Fish. I got a ton of respect for Washington. This will be my closing comments here, Sam. I saw Nick Saban talking about the SEC and making the case that the SEC is still the deepest conference. I really disagree with that. I really think the Big Ten, this is the healthiest they've been as a conference, and one of the major reasons why is the quarterback play. When I was playing back, it was known it was about defense and running the football, and there just wasn't enough quarterbacks to find a way to win close games late. And nowadays you go across the entire conference and there is such quality quarterback play where this is a very, very healthy football conference. It's fun to watch and it's fun to cover. You do a great job covering it, and enjoy listening to your podcast and enjoy talking ball with you here.
Thank you so much. And I agree on the quarterback part. This is the conference of quarterbacks right now.
It is.
Watch that Indiana-Oregon game and even the Illinois-Ohio State game. It's incredible.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to check out Jake Butt on Twitter and listen in to the Big Ten Network. See you all soon.